Week 1 of preseason is officially in the rear view mirror, with week 2 of the preseason coming right up. I'm Adam Wright, along with CJ Medieros. You're listening to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Fans Only Sports Network. We got a lot to talk about from week 1 and heading into the rest of the preseason. We're going to talk on a certain Steelers prospect, wide receiver prospect who has been shining so far in camp and preseason. We're going to talk about Zach Wilson's injury. But first, let's dive into the top safety being paid top safety money. So Derwin James has been extended. It is a 4-year, $76.4 million extension. And I believe how much of it is guaranteed?
I didn't see that. I don't know if that's come out yet.
All right, so maybe it's not out yet. I'll look it up. But what are your thoughts on this guy being made so early in his career the highest paid safety in the league?
One, I just saw that it's $42 million guaranteed, and two, he is a top 3 safety when he's healthy. Yes, I know that's the kicker for everyone, isn't it? But I mean, I love Derwin James. He's he can do it all. He's kind of like Tyrann Mathieu on steroids, if you catch my drift. He can do anything. He can blitz. He can tackle. He can cover. He can run with the best of them. And he's a ball hawk. But like I said, the issue with him is health. And he missed a few games last year. Adam, did you say how many? How many
he missed
last
2
year?
games this past season.
All right, missed 2 games this past season. He did struggle with a lot of injuries earlier in his career, but he seems to be getting a lot better. And frankly, other than that, there's really not a lot you can say about that other than, well, he's very worth it. He's a young guy, but he totally deserves every penny.
Yeah, so based on his playing ability, he deserves this money. But based on what he has gotten so far, so I believe he's entering. So he played all of 2018, played 16 games, was an All-Pro. That was his rookie year. 2019, he only managed to play 5 games. 2020, he couldn't play at all. And then 2021, he had a bounce back year playing 15 games. But I just feel like, so is he going? I believe this is a contract year for him, correct? So they do need to extend him.
Yeah.
But I feel like he might need to prove himself a little bit that he can stay healthy before they give him this record extension, because he essentially didn't play for 2 seasons.
Yeah. Oh, and I totally agree. So like I said, drafted in 2018, and he only played a few games in 2019 and missed all of 2020. So he's entering his 5th year, I believe. Yes, and he's on his 5th year option. But yeah, I mean, it was now or never. And I mean, but Adam, this is kind of like one of those things where you're bidding against yourself. It's like, do you want to take a chance and, you don't extend him right away and almost perhaps have him leave in free agency? Now, if you're the Chargers, ask yourself, is that a risk you really want to take, or do you bite the bullet and extend him? I mean, neither option looked all that enticing. I mean, James does deserve the money, but, there's those health issues. But long story short, I feel like they did make the right decision. And frankly, it was a safer decision, because I would have rather them extend them now than maybe you roll the dice and hope he resigns with you this offseason.
I just want to. What I do want to look at is what are the highest paid safeties, in the league, because it says he's actually the highest paid now by a good margin. So what's the next? What's the next highest? So it's Minkah Fitzpatrick, 72 for 4 years. Not sure how much of that's guaranteed. Then there's Jamal Adams. I mean, I just don't know if he even deserves Minkah Fitzpatrick money, because at least he's been able to stay healthy. And yeah. I know that he's such a big
All right,
time.
wait, here we go.
What's up?
Minka Fitzpatrick has 36 million guaranteed. Jamal Adams is 38 million guaranteed. I'm on over the cap.
Okay, and what was it, like 42 mil you said for Derwin
Yeah.
James?
Yeah, 42 million guaranteed.
So 42. So there you go. The guaranteed has a big gap. The overall money there, it's not that big. It's 72 for Minka Fitzpatrick, and then obviously, as we mentioned, 76 for Derwin James. It's not a huge gap, but like I don't know if he does, like, just based on his injury history, because he is, like I said, he essentially 2020 and 2021, 2019 and 2021, he essentially did not play at all. He played 5 games over that 2-year span. So like he deserves the money, but just based on his playing abilities, but his health still leaves a little bit to be desired. So, like, what do you think? Do they franchise tag him for a year and then say, look, we need you to be able to prove that you can stay healthy, and then give him that money? It's just this could wind up being a big mistake for him.
Yeah, I hear you. And you know me, I'm not a fan of the franchise tag. I'm really not. And whenever you franchise tag a player, that's a really dangerous game you're playing because, they could hold out, they could be unhappy. So honestly, as much as I'm in the same boat that you are, but I will stay on that hill that this is like the right decision. It's probably like the safest. And I'm sure perhaps there's like a clause in there, regarding injuries. So, and if he can play more than, we'll say, like 13 games this year, then I would just consider it fine.
Yeah, we'll have to see really how that goes for him. It's one of those things where just time will tell. And if it turns out he's on the field and he's healthy the rest of his career, and he's playing to the level that he can play, then there you go. That's good. That's a win for them. I'm just a little nervous about his injury history. That's all. And another player with some injury issues to be concerned about, Zach Wilson. He just had his surgery the other day, and we're going to cover that and what it means for the Jets going forward. Don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. James! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Slings it way down the field to Watkins! Sammy Watkins for the touchdown!
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. I'm Adam Wright, along with CJ Medieros, affiliated with Fans Only Sports Network, Power 88. And Zach Wilson has gone and had his surgery on his torn meniscus, and I believe he had a bone bruise as well. And so this one thing to look at with this injury is that this isn't the first time he's injured this knee in particular. He missed 4 games last season because of this. Not necessarily because of he tore his meniscus, but he had a knee injury. So that's something to look at. Recovery timetable said it's 2 to 4 weeks, and I believe that they're optimistic that it could be closer to 2 to 3 weeks. So week 1's still in play for them. But CJ, what do you think of Zach Wilson and, this little injury history that he's starting to develop?
Now, right now, I would say there's really no reason to panic just yet. If he injures this knee a third time, then perhaps you could raise a red flag. However, I don't really view this as that big of an issue, especially because, they said, say 2 to 4 weeks. They're optimistic that it could be 2. But if I were them, I would just, pretty much sit him out for the rest of the preseason and then, just save him for week 1. But the only thing that concerns me is that he's a mobile quarterback. We know it. I know it. He was touted in the draft as being a mobile quarterback. So that does complicate things. And if I'm Robert Saleh, I say, you stay in the pocket. Don't run unless you have to. You are now a pocket quarterback until your knee is fully healed. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and it's one thing if you're Lamar Jackson, where you almost, live and die by your rushing attack, but it's like Zach Wilson over there in Utah was looked at. People were calling him the Mormon Patrick Mahomes, with the arm angles he could throw at, with how he can, with his ability to throw on the run. You just got to be smart about it. If you really need to roll out of the pocket, do it. If you need to throw it away, do it. If you're going to run for a first down, slide at the right time. Don't slide late so that a defender accidentally dives into you. So, I just think it all comes down to being smart, especially with how Zach Wilson's built. If you look at the kid, he's not he looks really young. He's not really built that well. So it's not like he's this big guy like Cam Newton who could actually survive doing that for about 10 years.
Or Josh Allen.
Because he's not. Or Josh Allen. But Josh Allen's becoming more smart about it. And he's becoming more of a pocket passer as he goes on. He makes plays with his legs, and he's dynamic when he does it, but the real trademark to Josh Allen's game is his ability to throw. He can chuck it down the field, and he has receivers over there to do it. He's in the perfect offensive scheme. Zach Wilson's still figuring all that stuff out. So he needs to be careful early on in his career. And if his legs are gone, then that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough for him. So Wilson, he's got to be smart. Got to be smart about this.
Yeah, he's a fairly slender quarterback. I have his measurables right here. He's 6'2", 214, which, like we said, is a far cry from your Josh Allens and your Cam Newtons. Guys that can take the punishment, as a running quarterback. But when I see Zach Wilson, I would say that, look, you got some weapons now. You have Garrett Wilson, you have Elijah Moore, you have a decent tight end, CJ Uzomah, and a strong rushing game probably. So, dude, just stay in the pocket. You don't need to be a scrambler, And plus, you have a good defense, so you don't have to take all matters into your own hands. And I would definitely say maybe slacken the leash a little bit, but mark my words, if this right knee, it's his right knee, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. If it gets injured a third time, that's when you say you're a pocket guy, especially when these young guys start getting injured early, it can haunt them later.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. And also looking at it, this is a big year for Zach Wilson because the timetable is usually about 3 years, as I've mentioned before with quarterbacks. It's about 3 years when you draft a quarterback to really figure out whether or not this guy works for you. And he didn't have the best rookie year. So he's going into his sophomore season, and he has a much better situation around him. So while this isn't the third year for him, with the team that he has built around him, he has a couple of good wide receivers to work with. Actually, a few. Corey Davis as well, added on top of now newcomer Garrett Wilson, the other Wilson. A good backfield, a very good an offensive line that's actually getting better and better as the years go on. And then they bring in Dwayne Brown. Everything's working in his favor. So this is a big prove it year for Zach Wilson, although he's only going into his sophomore season.
Adam, you are absolutely right. But yeah, it shouldn't be a long-term thing, but it's just something to keep an eye on.
Certainly. And speaking of players to keep an eye on, a certain wide receiver, a rookie wide receiver out of the Steelers preseason and training camp has been shining. We're going to talk about that next. Don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski podcast. This is the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Fans Only Sports Network. I'm Adam Wright, CJ Medieros. So, George Pickens, a wide receiver, taken by the Steelers in this past draft. What was it, second round?
Yeah, second round.
So second round, this kid was taken. And all reports coming out of training camp is that he has been one of the big bright spots on this team. Even better than Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, all of them. All of the pass catchers, he has been showing up. And it showed during the preseason game that they played this past game. 3 receptions, 43 yards, and a touchdown. So showing that he can get a few catches, some yards, a touchdown. This kid is showing that he could potentially do it all. But another thing to look at, his character and a few issues, not necessarily off the field, but with maturity and lack of focus. CJ, what are your thoughts on George Pickens so far?
Now, he's an interesting guy to say the least. So, talent-wise, he's top 5. He's a top 5 receiver in this draft. I meant not in the league, but in like the most recent draft, he was top 5 in terms of talent. And a lot of people have said that one of the reasons he fell to the second round was due to maturity issues. And if you know a thing or two about the Steelers, you know they love flashy receivers with maturity issues. Think about some that they've had in recent vintage: Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Steelers fan, and he said, "Oh, Tomlin can straighten him out." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, because he's done a wonderful job of that so far." Now, there is this really good article by, I believe, yes, SB Nation, called "The Steelers May Have a Star in Receiver George Pickens if they can keep him focused." And one of his biggest weaknesses is that he's got a poor temperament. He's immature. He's reckless. He's over aggressive. He's like gotten with fights on other players. He's like tripped other players when they crash into his sideline. I don't remember what game it was last college football season, but I know he dumped water on like an opposing player when they crashed into their sideline. And not to mention, he's like really aggressive when it comes to blocking. That's a good quality in a receiver, but he does get flagged for it a lot. He's just a really aggressive guy, a hothead, some would say. Now, we've seen players like that before, and, you know, they can tone it down. But that's going to be a big if, especially because Mike Tomlin doesn't really seem to really ever have a handle on his crazy receivers. But that being said, the sky's the limit for George Pickens. I'm rooting for him. I am, but the attitude is a big question mark.
You know, when I look at this guy with you know, character issues, being drafted by the Steelers, and not only that, but also panning out and turning out to actually be a pretty talented kid, just feels so much like the Steelers. They're such great talent evaluators on wide receivers. They've been a factory for the past 10 to 12 years. And the guys that we listed aren't even the only ones who have been pretty good. There is Emmanuel Sanders who was drafted by them. Mike Wallace was drafted by them. Deontay Johnson has been pretty good.
I was just naming head cases, but yes.
Yeah, but like I'm going like even past those because the head cases have been great. Those actually have been their best.
You can make
receivers.
A case for Hines Ward too. He was a little nutty.
Yeah, but all of these wide receivers, and most of them to have character issues. This Steelers front office really doesn't care about any off the field issues, do they? Because they've been great with evaluating the talent side, but they kind of ignore everything else that goes along with them. And it's kind of like the talent has kept them competitive in this during that time frame, but they still it's like the other issues with these receivers has dragged them down. Remember Martavis Bryant?
Yeah, he could never stay on the field due to the substance abuse rules.
He was suspended an entire season due to substance abuse. The Steelers went to the AFC Championship that season, and they were bounced by the Patriots because they didn't have enough firepower to to compete with them, and they really could have used Martavis Bryant that year. So that's really not good on their part. It's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And it's just, if he wasn't on the Steelers, I would say it's fine. But they do have a bit of a diva issue, not just at receiver. You remember Le'Veon Bell? I
Yep.
do.
How could I not?
And who could forget the guys on defense like Vince Williams and Mike Mitchell, the former safety? Yeah, they were head cases too. And just Tomlin's got to get a hold on like these young, fast and loose players and fast.
William
But I mean, because I don't want to see another like Antonio. I don't think he's going to be Antonio Brown, but another Antonio Brown-esque flame out where a super talented receiver runs himself out of town. I want George Pickens to have a great career. I really do.
Yeah, and to add on to that, William Gay. Do you remember that one game?
Who could forget?
He got a pick six, and he kept on celebrating the touchdown, dancing with everybody. Then he was on the sidelines, and then there was a flag for excessive celebration. And as they were, and as the ref, and as the official was announcing that it was excessive celebration, unsportsmanlike conduct, he was still on the sideline dancing with all his teammates. That was just good God.
Who could forget?
He just didn't give a damn.
He really didn't.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to move on to the Fumblerooski fan box, where we're going to dive into how you guys feel about this 2022 season, specifically some takes that you guys have. Everybody has that one hot take, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. So we got a lot of them, and this is going to be a great segment. Lots of good responses on some hot takes going into this 2022 regular season. You won't want to miss this, so don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. It's caught! James! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins! Sammy Watkins for the touchdown!
This is the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Fans Only Sports Network. Adam Wright, CJ Medieros. We have reached the Fumblerooski fan box. So what happens is we post a question filter on our Instagram every Monday, and you can respond with hot takes, questions, and more, and we will discuss it and give you a shout out on our podcast. Respond to next week's fan box question to be featured on our show. So the question of the week, and it wasn't really a question, it was just telling you guys.
It was a command.
Yes, it was a request. Give us your hottest take for the 2022 season. So I expected a lot of good ones from you guys, and you did not disappoint. Kick it off with Ian Mulhern, who's a Panthers fan, by the way, said Panthers have more than 5 wins this year. Talk about a smoldering hot take, huh?
Hey, I mean, they have a lot to overcome. Most of them are Matt Rule.
Yeah,
and maybe Baker doesn't pan out, but then they should. I mean, they have the talent to, but one never knows when one's coach is Matt Rule.
Yeah, and so Jay-Z8 Hockey, I don't know his real name. That's just his username on Instagram. He said Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl. I mean,
can get down with that.
I guess it's a hot take, but I mean, I expect Super Bowls from Tom Brady every year.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just a little bit of bias. But I mean, they have they have the talent level to do it, and Tom Brady hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. He retired just to unretire in a 2-month span, so his heart is clearly still into it. So I don't see why they can't be able to do it. Then Luke Banning said Saints win the NFC South. So there's another take on the NFC South. And it's going to be tough for the Saints. A lot needs to go right for them, but they do low-key have a very talented roster. and they'll be. I think they'll be competitive.
Yeah, not to mention they always give Tampa a rough time during the season. So, I mean, hey, those division wins add up.
Yeah. Jaron Schutz said as in Kirk Cousins throws for 5,000 yards.
Perhaps. I mean, he's got the weapons to do it, does he not? Dalvin Cook's a pretty good receiving back. Not to mention there's guys like Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne on their offense, and even Irv Smith to an extent. But then again, this is Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have a better offensive scheme. Well, theoretically, a better offensive scheme. So, sure, it could happen. I'm not too high on Kirk Cousins, but he has an elite offense around him, good offensive line, weapons on offense, good offensive backfield. So we'll see how it works. Chase McGinty said JT for MVP. It's
I mean, I don't hate it, but the MVP is just such a quarterback award,
Yeah, and you can kind of understand why. I mean, running backs are very rarely the reason why teams win championships. But when a team wins a Super Bowl, then usually the quarterback's right in the middle of it. Or if they're leading that MVP, like if they're leading that season where the team is just devouring everybody, usually the quarterback's in the middle of it. But I completely understand. JT, if anyone's going to do it, it's him. That's the thing. And I'm sorry, but Derrick Henry's getting up there in age. He's starting to get some injury issues racking up. And you can understand why, because the guy continues just to,
getting up there in age. He's 28.
That's old. That's kind of old for running backs.
Jeez. All right.
In the past 10 years, only two, I forgot the statistic. Only two running backs. There's only been two running backs who have have been the league leading rusher while being under the age of 25. Both of them were Adrian Peterson.
Huh.
Anyways, where were we? So JT for MVP. Okay. Connor Fallon said Justin Fields leads the Bears to a 12-4 record. That's going to be.
That's a Herculean task.
If Justin Fields can do that, then he deserves. If there was an award for most improved, that he would get that. Because with the offensive line they have, the depleted defense, they have some pieces on offense, but you can only do so much with that when you don't have any time to throw. Like it was one thing with Joe Burrow this past season where he didn't have much time to throw, but he had all the weapons in the world, so he didn't need that much time. And he was still getting his teeth kicked in by defenders. But like, I just don't see it. I don't see it.
Not in that division.
I hope I'm wrong. I think that kid is very talented, but I don't know. Zachary Stilson said Patrick Mahomes will not have a spectacular season. He'll be good, but not spectacular. I would say that's pretty realistic for him.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
I think he'll have a pretty good season because, like, from a production standpoint, I think MVS and Juju can hold their own with trying to replace the production of Tyreek Hill. One can play well underneath like Tyreek Hill, and the other can be a deep threat like Tyreek Hill. So they can kind of be all right, but not nearly what Mahomes has been. Tyson Tate said Tua leads the league in passing touchdowns.
Well, he has no excuse not to.
To lead the league in touchdowns, that is pretty hard, even if he can play, because there's a lot of good quarterbacks out there, especially this year with the teams around him. But like the talent level that Tua has around him, two awesome wide receivers. and a great offensive line to throw behind, and coaching that that theoretically is actually very friendly to quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It should work out for him. Jack Breel said Vikings win the NFC North. I think they deserve to be favored too. They have all the talent to do it. Their rivals, their division rivals, are getting weaker. And I mean, maybe the Lions are getting better, but they're a few years off from contention. But they should. I think they should win the NFC North. Eli Turner said Broncos go 11-6 and win the Super Bowl. See, when Russell Wilson was added to that team, everything changed. That it makes all the difference in the world with Russell Wilson, and they have the ceiling to be a Super Bowl contender.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were always, ever since Peyton Manning left, the Broncos were always a team that was there was always one quarterback away. And now they've got their quarterback. Let's see what they can do.
They finally traded for him. We'll see how it works. I mean, Russell Wilson's no Peyton Manning, but
yeah,
still,
very,
very competent, very good quarterback. All right. Landon Weber said Jonathan Taylor gets 2,000 rushing yards. So Jonathan Taylor is young, like I said. So if anyone's going to be the league leading rusher and just destroy the NFL world with his rushing ability, it's this guy. It's Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
And like maybe Najee Harris someday, but that offensive line for the Steelers it's just not it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah. And I get Joe Mixon is getting up there in age, but his offensive line is getting better.
And running backs getting up there in age. I don't even know if Joe Mixon's that old. Let me look.
Running backs age.
He's 26, Adam. He's 26.
He's not 25 and younger.
Whoa, well then.
He could be really good, but and like another thing to look at too, but like another thing to look, we're talking about like rushing for 2,000 yards. Is Joe Mixon doing that?
Probably not. Just because
exactly.
It's not his fault. I'm sure he could. Alas, the Bengals there, they are a pass first offense.
That's true.
Not going to change.
I see it more balanced though, isn't it? Because Mixon still had a pretty good year.
I mean, yeah, he did, but that's just because Joe Mixon.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Mike Hansen said Bears make the playoffs. That's like I said earlier on, like let alone a 12-4 record. I don't even see them really making a run at the playoffs because I think Green Bay is still going to find a way to be competitive because they have Aaron Rodgers. And then there's obviously the Vikings, who we just talked about, probably the most talented team there. And the Lions are an up-and-coming team. And maybe they're not a contending team, but I don't see the Bears catching them because their defense sucks now.
Yeah, and so does their O-line.
And their offensive line sucks. So they're going to get their quarterback killed too. And that quarterback is not going to be able to get the ball to the talented Darnell Mooney and David Montgomery is going to be lucky if he's not tackled behind the line of scrimmage.
Not to mention, they really don't have many receivers not named Darnell Mooney.
I think is Anthony Miller still there?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay.
Also, they did draft this guy, Velus Jones Jr., but that's
they drafted your boy N'Keal Harry. They traded for him. They traded for him.
The greatest touch world peace. He's your problem now, Chicago.
Yeah. All right. Cash Withers said CD is a top 5 receiver.
Now, Adam, I don't know if you remember.
Yep. Can you?
Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
My came unplugged. But I believe it was Cash Wizard. Oh my God, what's wrong with me today?
Cash Withers.
Withers, who
had him as an MVP candidate.
Who had him as an MVP candidate. I'm like, this man loves CD Lamb. I don't know if I'm ready to crown him top 5 though.
How could you not love CeeDee Lamb? Like he had a top 5 talent since he's entered the league so far. Now Amari Cooper's out the door. So like all of those targets are going to go to him. And on top of that, like it's not like he's the only option in that offense and their defenses are going to focus on him, because now there's also Dalton Schultz at tight end. There's also Michael Gallup right behind him, who's a good receiver in his own right. So CeeDee Lamb is going to get all these targets, and I think he's going to have a career year. I think he could be top 5. He can. He has that ability. Patrick Williver said, I called the Bengals last year. I'm ready for the newest lethal offense. Lions top 8. That is bold.
That's probably the hottest take we've probably gotten so far.
They need better play at quarterback, but like their offensive line is getting better. They have pieces on
2018 Goff.
And even then, like that felt like it was more coaching and some offensive weapons around him that were making Goff better. Now, Goff
you don't believe in Dan Campbell?
It's not that. It's just he's no
Sean McVay.
He's no Sean McVay.
Yeah, I hear you.
And like he's still like Goff is still a decent quarterback, and he proved it this past year. He was serviceable, but he's not the type who's going to lead a top 8 offense. He's not going to be. And you need a better wide receiving core. You need better coaching for that. They have a good wide receiving core. It's good, young. It's up and coming, but I don't know. And also, we forgot about TJ Hawkinson. He's a good guy.
Oh yeah,
like him. Stephen Parker said Dax will win Dax Hill will win Defensive Rookie of the Year, and the Bengals will win the AFC and the Super Bowl. In case you didn't notice, Stephen Parker is a Bengals fan.
How could you tell?
Lots of faith in his home team. I love the Bengals this year.
The
only reason I hesitate, I know, and I don't know why, because like there's nothing analytical about it. It's just an emotional thing. It's some sort of mental block for the entire team. It's like, guys, you got better this year. Just let's go. Come on. It's in the past. Let's go. I don't like that it's a real thing. Like
me neither.
It's weird. And very few teams have been able to have the mental toughness to really overcome it.
You know what's interesting? Wait, Adam.
What's up?
The last team to lose a Super Bowl that went right back, I believe, was New England.
That's it. It was New England. But like teams to go back, I think there were like 7 of them all time.
Yeah,
teams
I know.
To go back and win it, the Patriots were only the second team ever to do it.
Who was the other one? Was that like
Dolphins?
Oh yeah.
And maybe there was a third team, but I know it's extremely rare air. Like it never happens. And the Patriots were able to do that. Freaking balls. That was a ballsy Patriots team. Not the best roster, but that team had
heart.
That team had heart. And they were able to work through a lot of difficult things during that season. All right, where are we? Kaylee Morton said Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, I agree.
Listen,
Patrick Mahomes.
Indeed.
Write it down.
Look, thank you
on a pillow.
Kaylee, thank you very much for the response. We just asked for a hot take. That's all. Do you think that Patrick Mahomes is going to have an elite year? That's a hot take. Just try to maybe add some context. That's all.
Maybe I don't know. Hot take. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is cute, I've heard. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's what she meant.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, Patrick Mahomes is a cool
someone's
dude.
Getting sus. He's Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, indeed. Yes, Patrick Mahomes. Good take. All right. Grayson Mortimer said Bills win the Super Bowl. May not seem hot, but they're cursed. Jim Kelly would agree.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The Four Falls of Buffalo. Have you seen that ESPN documentary, The 30 for 30?
Yeah,
it's actually pretty good.
It is.
And it's heartbreaking because you see how much they try.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Eventually, teams actually started to hate them because they would go and everyone said they're going to lose. Year 4, they were really like fighting everyone. Not only were they fighting back from 3 straight Super Bowl losses, but everyone wanted them out of the Super Bowl because they're saying, don't go back. Please don't go back. You're going to lose.
And look, there are division rivals. And as a Pats fan, I feel bad. I felt so bad watching that. I really did. I like Jim Kelly and I like Bruce Smith. And it's just, they should have won at least one. It's sad, honestly.
Yeah. Luke Banning said the Lions go 8-9 and barely miss the 7th seed. That's not really
feasible.
I could really see that happening. Like a 500 team now, they have some talent, and they're up and coming, but they don't actually get anywhere. Not yet, at least. Will Hinckley said Dolphins win against the Bills in the Super Bowl.
Now, for those listening at home, can you spot what is wrong with that sentence?
What's wrong with this picture, guys? What's wrong with the picture? Can 2 teams in the same division meet in a Super Bowl?
Oh, that's a tough one. Science hasn't figured that one out yet.
That's a tough one. That's a good take. Hot take right there. God, I didn't even know what to. I was like, I looked at that response. I was like, Obviously, he was just trying to be funny. It was pretty funny. I had a little laugh, and then I poked some fun. I put the Anchorman. I put the
Ron Burgundy
Anchorman line where Ron Burgundy after what's his name? The other guy was saying it's called Sex Panther. It's illegal in 9 countries. They've done studies. 60% of the time it works every time. And then Ron Burgundy says that doesn't make sense. And that's what I put up for that. So I had some fun with it too. But that I like that. It was funny. Nick Normand said Seahawks most underrated offense in the league, just a quarterback away, and an offensive line.
Yeah.
So which is a little important. Yeah, especially since they lost their best player in left tackle Dwayne Brown. Yeah.
Losing Dwayne Brown and Russell Wilson the same offseason can really hurt your offense. Surprise, surprise. But, their running game, they have the up-and-coming Rashad Penny. He's decent.
Yeah, and they have Kenneth
receiving
Walker, too.
Yeah, rookie Kenneth Walker. And you have a tight end you just got in Noah Fant. He's pretty good. And you have DK Metcalf and
Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, and Tyler Lockett. So, the weapons are there, but is the protection there for the quarterback that you also don't have?
And the quarterback you don't have. Quarterback and offensive line is pretty important for an offense that you claim to be underrated. Cola DJ said Tua throws 30 or more touchdowns. That's
he has no reason not to.
That's kind of got to be the expectation. And if he can't do that, then you might need to say goodbye to Tua. Bring in Tom Brady, who almost came to New England, it turns out.
You mean
and
Miami?
Was talking to and the Miami Dolphins who were talking to Tom Brady illegally, and Sean Payton. I thought that was a big conspiracy theory. That was just crazy. It was crazy. That was a lit episode though when we were talking about it. Damon Bergfeld. Let me know about the pronunciation, Damon. But Vikings take last in their division. That's.
Maybe if they are like the Ravens last year and everyone and their mother gets injured.
If they get hurt and they play like really poorly, that's very hard to see. Like it's hard for me to see them not finishing in last, let alone finishing in it's hard for me to not see them finishing in first. Not even let alone finishing last. So that's tough. I don't know. But Derek Hool said Jameis Winston and his crab legs make top 10 in MVP voting. I'd say that's a pretty realistic standard for him.
Yeah, the Saints are sneaky underrated.
Good wide receivers. They fixed their offensive line. They did replace Terron Armstead in the first round of the draft. And they got another wide receiver out of it. Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas coming back. I could really see it. I do. And there's also Kamara. Granted, if they have him, but chances are they will. If he gets suspended, it'll be like later on in the season, and he can appeal it and then drag it out into the season and into the off season. And then next thing you know, he's suspended in 2023 instead, when he'll probably be kind of washed up.
We're doing this again, are we?
Look, running backs age like milk.
All right.
That's
yes.
just
Fine.
I'm setting the standard that way. And if they surprise me, then golf clap. Golf clap. But until these teams with their offensive schemes stop running their running backs into the ground, then yeah. Just running backs, it's tough for them. It's tough. Jack Robb, and brace for this one, said Drew Lock is a Pro Bowler and has a run at MVP.
You know, we have a friend that's a Drew Lock fan, and I'm sure he's at home weeping tears of joy.
Oh, he probably loves this take.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough for me to see him being a Pro Bowler, but an MVP. And even if it does turn out he can play, that offensive line still stinks.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to win league MVP, you also want your team to have a high seed. So even if your offensive line does turn out to pan out, then your defense is going to lose you games anyways.
Yeah,
so
their defense
Drew Lock's screwed either way. And also, he may not even be the week 1 starter. It could be Geno Smith. So there's that much to look at. But still, it is a hot take. I mean, it's very out there. But, yeah. All right. Sean Howe said, Finns make a playoff appearance. That should be the expectation, man.
Yeah, if they don't make the playoffs, I'm calling their season a disappointment.
All right. And Isaac Zonana said Tua MVP. Yeah, he can if it turns out he can play. And it's tough to win league MVP. It is. Even if you have weapons around you, it turns out you can play. Just ask Tom Brady last year. I guess 42, 43 touchdown passes isn't good enough.
Over 5,000 yards too.
Over 5,000 yards. I guess that's not good enough to win league MVP over a guy who threw 35 touchdowns. But the interceptions, he didn't throw many interceptions. So that must mean he's the MVP, doesn't it?
Just for him to disappear in the playoffs. You got to remember, the MVP is a regular season award because Rodgers is a regular season quarterback. The more you know.
All right. Leo, and I apologize for the pronunciation. Koivu? It's Koivu. So let me know about the pronunciation, Leo. But he said Raiders taking it to the Super Bowl this year. Their secondary is a little questionable, and their offensive line is questionable. Everywhere else, they're pretty solid.
Yeah.
Their front seven's good. Their offensive line's questionable, but their backfield is good. Their quarterback is really good. The receiving core is awesome.
Dang right.
And they have an elite tight end. But they have a couple of question marks there. Let's see if they can fill those in. If they can, then maybe. And it also depends on how they fit in that division because it's a tough division. Stephen Parker said Broncos Super Bowl. So another Super Bowl pick. Yeah, they have the ceiling to do it. But it's a new team that's kind of thrown together, new quarterback. They kind of just need to gel early on. Gel early and win some games and win that division because it's a tough division. So Isaac Zonana again said Waddle and Tyreek both have over 1.3K yards. So 1,300 yards for each.
Well, that depends on Tua now, doesn't it?
Depends on the quarterback play. Depends on the quarterback play. All right, well, that's all our responses. We had 30 of them to go over, and I'm pretty sure we spent about half the episode going over them. We had 4 segments. The first 3 took about just over 20 minutes. The others took probably close to 30. Or the others as in that one last segment, the fan box. You guys are giving us a lot of responses. We got 30 this week, 21 the week before, and 26 the week before that. We appreciate you guys coming in to answer and give us some hot takes. And we're going to be doing it all season, so we appreciate getting you guys' feedback and everything. But CJ, do you have Anything else before we end the show today?
Nope, not just saying it was a good episode.
Good
Leave it at
episode,
that.
man. All right. Well, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for listening to us. Be sure to tune into us live Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 on Twitter and Facebook through Fans Only Sports Network. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have all our episodes available on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and so much more. Also, be sure to follow our Instagram at Fumblerooski_podcast to keep up with our podcast and the latest coverage on the NFL. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Over and out.